Where do you get your information from?
From incorrect sourcing and information and sloppy research for which I am responsible alone and deeply mortified, and I apologize, as I have on my website, to every resident of Birmingham and anybody else who felt appropriately insulted. And there's no excuse for it, and that's all I can say. The larger context, so you know, for people who did not see the interview, was the discussion about radical Islamic problems in Europe, in which I did discuss no-go zones in France and other countries in Europe, as well as the issue of European governments not being able to get a hold or on top of the problem of the growth of radical Islam. But certainly, in citing and identifying Birmingham, that was an inexcusable error for which there is no excuse whatsoever. And hearing it over when you played it was like waterboarding, I guess.
Well, I'm sorry about that. At a very serious and difficult time, you have somewhat added to the gaiety of the nation. Lots of jokes on Twitter been spoke by this Fox News Facts and elsewhere. But how did you come to be a terror expert and to set up your group?
Well, just so you know, I don't really describe myself as a terrorism expert. I'm a terrorism investigator. I started off as an investigative journalist, first at U.S. News and World Report many years ago, then at CNN as a correspondent, and then I did a documentary in '94 called Jihad in America that aired on public television, garnered several major national awards, and then I founded a nonprofit group called the Investigative Project on Terrorism to investigate the networks of radical Islam on American soil following the bombing in February of 1993 of the World Trade Center, the first bombing that killed only 7 people. The Institute is nonprofit, and we provide information to journalists, and we've done interviews, of course, but provide information to law enforcement, for which we do not get paid 1 penny. We survive only on nonprofit contributions from American citizens. And so we have anybody can go to our website. I might provide the URL, which is www.investigativeproject.org. And look, I am not going to make any excuse whatsoever, you know. And the problem is that in this business, especially in the day of social media and the internet, and everything is picked up syllable by syllable. So I'm not going to hide behind anything. I made a mistake, an egregious mistake, but I will say this. There is an issue, a larger issue that I was discussing of radical Islamic terrorism and militancy that exists in Europe and in the United Kingdom that can't be denied. And unfortunately,
okay, Mr. Emerson, can I ask you, have you been to Birmingham? Have you been to London and studied this?
Yes, I've been to London, absolutely.
Not Birmingham, no.
Well, I was in Birmingham many years ago.
Right, yeah, and just finally, our time's running up, and I do thank you for joining us. You did say that listening to your comments on Fox News again was a bit like being waterboarded. I suppose there's some people who might find that a bit of an offensive analogy.
I didn't mean to offend anyone. I meant just to explain the fact that it was hurtful to me and hurtful to everybody else, and I deserved to have experienced the pain of listening to it over again. I wish I could roll back the time in this one, but I can't. And I deserve whatever, you know, pain and humiliation that is coming to me. But the fact remains, I said it, and that's it. Didn't mean to make a jocularity of it. I have now endured death threats over the last 16 hours, but that's something that's an occupational hazard when you deal and investigate terrorist groups. And I have to live with that.
Just finally, Mr. Emerson, we haven't been hearing too much from Americans over the last week or so. You might understand why. Do you think President Obama should have attended that mass rally in Paris yesterday?
I do think so. Yes, I do. I think that it was an extraordinary outpouring. There were leaders from all over the world. And I think even though Attorney General Holder did attend, I think it would have been nice and symbolic if President Obama attended as well.
Mr. Emerson, thank you very much indeed for joining us.